Hey there, creepy peeps, and welcome back to another stale movie review. Today we are talking about Hard Candy. So Hard Candy was requested from one of my patrons, Kevin. So thank you so much for your request, Kevin. It was part of one of his perks from being a creepy patron peep. So if you want to find out the other perks you get from being a patron, you can follow that link in the description. Directed by David Slade and starring Ellen Page, Patrick Wilson, and Sandra Oh, Hard Candy follows a 14-year-old girl, Haley, who tricks a photographer, Jeff, into meeting up with her and taking her to his home. Once there, Haley reveals that she knows Jeff is a pedophile and potentially a murderer and begins to torture him. So an interesting fact I read about this movie, the idea for the film came from producer David W. Higgins, who saw a news story or mini documentary or something about young girls in Japan who were luring older men into a, remote location only to assault and mug them along with a gang of other girls. I can just imagine, just all of a sudden all these Japanese schoolgirls coming out of nowhere and just beating the shit out of these guys. I don't know for sure if the news stories saw they were luring them under like pedophile-y type circumstances or just, luring them to mug them. So if it was like a vigilante thing, if it was like a criminal kind of thing. But yeah, anyways, let's get into what I liked about Hard Candy. I gotta say, the opening scene of this movie, or the opening sequence, I should say, is so freaking uncomfortable that there were just so many times where I wanted to turn off the movie and just be like, you know what, I was gonna message you, Kevin, and be like, I'm sorry, I can't watch this. It got so uncomfortable that I paused the movie in the middle of the sequence and I checked Patrick Wilson's and Ellen Page's ages. I checked their ages because obviously I know that they wouldn't hire an actual underage girl to play the role of Haley. I knew that, but it just comforted me that they, to know that they are not that far apart in age. Part of what made it so uncomfortable, obviously, the fact that in the movie it's a 14-year-old girl and like a 30-something-year-old man. Ew. But it's like, it was their dialogue and the fact that the camera was like very tight on their faces. It was very, bouncing back and forth, like cutting between Haley and Jeff back and forth instead of showing them together, with them on either end of the frame and talking. There's very little shots of that. It's more Haley than Jeff, Haley than Jeff. And it's kind of foreshadowing also too, which worked really well because obviously once it's revealed what Haley's intentions are, that they're not on the same page. So Haley has her ulterior motive going on, and we're not even really sure what Jeff's motive is because we never really find out what would have happened if the day went how he wanted it to. We know that they're not on the same page, and the camera tells us that by not showing them together in the frame very often. Kind of speaking on not knowing what Jeff's motives are, you don't like it gets to a point where the lines get so blurred between who the bad guy is. There are a few moments where you're unsure whether Jeff is as bad of a guy as Haley is saying, because I know he does chat with her online, as we see in the very opening scene of the movie, and obviously goes out on a date with her and takes her back to his house. So, but for all we know in the movie, this could be the first time he's done this, and maybe he hasn't actually done anything bad in the past yet. So the lines kind of get blurred as to who is really the bad guy, because what if Haley is mistaken and Jeff hasn't done anything wrong yet and she's torturing him for potentially no reason, or just preventative, and is that the right thing to do if they haven't done anything wrong yet? There's a lot of blurred lines in the movie, and it it keeps you on the edge of your seat for the whole movie, and it makes me interested to watch to the end because I want to know what's going on and who the bad guy is and who I need to be rooting for. So I liked that. This is definitely a movie that reveals itself as the movie goes on. So there were a lot of things that happened in the movie where initially I was confused, but then the movie does a good job of like, not like covering its tracks or anything, but explaining, so it's like, it felt like there's a lot of thought put into the movie, if that makes sense. So for example, and I am going to spoil something here, but the movie came out over 10 years ago, so deal with it. The whole castration scene, it's revealed after that very long and intense sequence that Hailey didn't actually do anything and it was all a trick. At first I was like, what was the point of doing that? Like, why fake that, you know? But then later in the movie you realize that would kind of defeat the purpose of having Jeff hang himself. Obviously, if he kills himself, the police are not going to think twice about, oh, maybe there was some foul play here actually because he does it himself. So what Hailey's really doing is kind of driving Jeff to that point to where he's so just emotionally unstable that she can convince him to do this. By the end of the movie, that's explained, kind of. Obviously not in so many words. Hailey doesn't legitimately explain that, but you understand that that was the purpose of it. So instead of leaving me with tons of questions like that, I'm only left with the normal questions, like what happens to Hailey and that sort of thing. Another kind of instance of this is Sandra Oh's character. She's a very minor character. She plays Jeff's neighbor. You know, there's a short little scene where she sees Hailey walking around on the roof, probably setting up the noose and things like that. Then later, she goes over to Jeff's house to deliver Girl Scout cookies or whatever that Jeff bought from her daughter. And you can tell that Sandra Oh's character is very suspicious of Hailey, and you know, Hailey's excuses are kind of like, you know, you can tell she's a little bit on edge. At first, again, I was like, what was the point of having her character in there? It's not like she calls the police or anything like that. But I like that it kind of, because of Sandra Oh's character, it kind of leaves a bit of a cliffhanger ending. There's that kind of uneasiness at the end of the movie, like you're not sure whether Hailey could potentially get caught or not because Sandra Oh's character sees her face very clearly. She talks to her for a full couple of minutes. You wonder like, oh, I wonder, you know, this character will see what happened to Jeff and put the pieces together and be like, oh, this girl was over at his house. It's very strange and she was acting suspicious. Or, you know, if it's like Hailey says in the movie, once they find out that he is actually a pedophile, will they even care to investigate into that? Like, will it kind of just be like, well, he's removed himself from society, so it's kind of, you know, everybody wins situation. So I like that because it creates discussion within the movie, and I like movies where you don't want to leave the world, you want to find out what happens to the characters, and I think that's, you know, like in a good way, like, you know, it leaves a few questions, but not too many questions. So now we must ask the question, was the movie worth watching? I mean, I'm gonna go ahead and say yes, even though it is very upsetting to watch, or it could be very upsetting to watch or triggering to watch. So if anything that I was describing might be triggering for you, you may not like this movie, especially the beginning of the movie for sure, where it's like, you know, the uncomfortableness because of the whole like pedophilia thing is at its peak. You know, just a fair warning. I feel like the worst of it is at the beginning, so just as a warning, but I still think it was a good movie for sure. I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. I really enjoyed it. On IMDb, it has a 7.1 out of 10. On Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 68% critic score, 78% audience score. And then on Letterboxd, it has a 3.4 out of 5. So if you've seen Hard Candy, let me know in the comment section down below what you thought about it. I think I watched this on Amazon. I can't remember anymore now. Regardless, if it was on Amazon, I will have updated my Amazon affiliate link page over on my blog. If you don't know, I put up affiliate links for all the movies that I watch in the current month. So right now it's just all the movies that I've seen so far in August. There are affiliate links for a rental of the movie. So if you want to rent the movie and watch it yourself, you can use those links if you so wish. There's no pressure to use those links, but if you do, it does help out the channel. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're new here. Become a Creepy Peep today. I post videos Monday through Friday. And you can ring that notification bell down there to be notified every time one of those videos goes live. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, stay strange. Bye!